Imagine you're walking down the street thinking about your own things, about work, about plans for the evening, about what you need to buy at the store, and suddenly you realize that you've been talking to yourself out loud for several minutes already. You abruptly stop, look around, feel a slight wave of embarrassment, and think, damn, did anyone hear that? Am I okay? Maybe I'm starting to lose my mind. If this has ever happened to you in your life, and it has happened to almost every one of us, you are now in exactly the right place, because today we are finally going to break down one of the most interesting, most underestimated, and most important topics about how our brain actually works. Almost every person on the planet sometimes talks to themselves. Some do it quietly, almost in a whisper, thinking that no one can hear them. Some say their thoughts out loud while standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom, sitting behind the wheel in traffic, or cooking dinner in the kitchen. And some people even loudly argue with themselves, gesture, ask themselves questions, and emotionally answer them themselves. And here is the question that comes to the mind of most people in such moments. If I talk to myself, does that mean something is wrong with me? Maybe this is the first sign that I'm losing touch with reality. Maybe it's time for me to see a doctor. Today you will learn the truth that becomes a real relief for most people. We will break down why this happens, where the inner voice came from, why the brain does it, why it intensifies during stress, how successful people use self-talk as a superpower, and in what rare cases this self-talk can really be a signal that it's worth seeking professional help. Imagine an experienced surgeon before the most complex operation of his career. Behind the door of the operating room, the patient's relatives are waiting. The room is completely silent, and here this doctor quietly but very confidently says to himself, "Calm down, maximum concentration, first step, check the instruments. Breathing is even. You've done this many times. Everything is under control." No one in the hospital thinks he is strange. On the contrary, it is precisely such doctors who are considered the best in the world because they use self-talk as a tool of precision, calmness, and high efficiency. Or take a professional chess player at an important international tournament. He sits at the board, looks at the position, and quietly whispers his calculations. If I move here, he can answer like this. No, then I switch to this option. Stop. What if he does this? This is not madness. This is a champion's brain working at the limit of its capabilities and using self-talk as a superpower. And now imagine an ordinary person standing in a huge traffic jam and saying out loud, "So, if I turn here now, I'll have time to pick up the child from kindergarten and still stop by the store. No, then I'll definitely be late. Okay, then first the store and the child later." This person is not crazy. He is simply using one of the oldest and most effective tools of the brain so as not to get lost in the chaos of an ordinary day and maintain clarity of thinking. One fact that surprises many: research shows that people who consciously talk to themselves while solving complex tasks often cope with them faster, with fewer errors, and with much less stress than those who try to keep all thoughts only in their head. Why can a simple conversation with yourself so strongly affect the work of the brain, memory, concentration, emotional state, and even physical performance? This is exactly what we will now analyze in great detail, step by step, with many examples and explanations. Self-talk is an absolutely normal, universal, and incredibly ancient human behavior. It occurs in everyone without exception, from small children who are just learning to walk and constantly comment on every action, to adults, top managers before an important presentation, Olympic athletes before the start, scientists in the laboratory who voice their hypotheses, mothers who simultaneously cook dinner and plan the next day, and even those people who simply walk down the street and voice their thoughts, plans, and experiences. Our brain constantly conducts an internal dialogue. Sometimes this dialogue is quiet and almost imperceptible. Sometimes it breaks out and becomes audible. But in any case, this is not a character quirk and not strangeness. This is one of the most important, most complex, and most useful tools that evolution has given to humans over millions of years of development. To truly understand the nature of self-talk, we need to go very far back, to the moment when complex articulated language began to form in our ancient ancestors. Language appeared not only so that people could exchange information with each other. One of the important functions of language was precisely so that a person could effectively communicate with himself. When Homo sapiens developed the ability for full, complex, structured speech, a real evolutionary miracle happened. For the first time in history, humans gained the opportunity to create a full-fledged simulator of reality inside their own head. They could voice various scenarios, analyze past events, rehearse future situations, weigh pros and cons, and learn from their own mistakes even before these mistakes occurred in real life. The brightest and most understandable example that everyone can see is small children aged 2 or 3 years. If you have ever carefully watched a child who is playing, building a tower of cubes, assembling a puzzle, or simply trying to put on a sock, you have probably heard how he constantly speaks out loud. So, this piece needs to be placed here. No, not like that. Carefully, now everything will fall. That's right. Well done, I did it. This external, loud, very detailed self-talk helps the child organize his actions, maintain attention, control movements, learn from mistakes, and gradually build a complex model of the world inside his head. Over time, as the prefrontal cortex of the brain develops, this loud external conversation gradually moves inside. It becomes quiet, internal, almost soundless. Psychologists call this phenomenon inner speech or inner speech. But in its essence and mechanism, nothing fundamentally changes. The person continues to conduct a full dialogue with himself, only now it happens inside the head and in most cases is inaudible to others. Lev Vygotsky, the outstanding Soviet psychologist, already in the early 20th century showed how a child's external speech gradually turns into internal speech and becomes the basis of complex thinking, self-control, and higher mental functions. Now let's talk about why the brain conducts these conversations with itself every day throughout its life. The fact is that self-talk has very specific, practical, and incredibly important functions. First, it helps organize chaotic, fragmented thoughts into a clear, logical sequence. When 20 different ideas, tasks, memories, and experiences are spinning in the head at the same time, voicing helps build them into a clear order. Second, self-talk is incredibly useful for planning future actions. When we voice the plan out loud or to ourselves, the brain remembers and fixes it much better. Third, it helps solve complex problems and find non-standard solutions. Many people notice that when they start voicing the task out loud, the solution often comes faster and easier. Fourth, self-talk significantly improves memory. Voicing information out loud or to yourself substantially increases the likelihood of remembering and subsequently reproducing it. Fifth, it helps make more balanced, high-quality decisions because it allows you to look at the situation from different sides, weigh all the pros and cons, see possible risks and advantages. And finally, the most important and most powerful thing, self-talk reduces cognitive overload. When you take part of your thoughts into speech, you literally unload working memory and give the brain the opportunity to work more efficiently. Gary Lupien from the University of Wisconsin in his experiments proved that voicing the names of objects or instructions noticeably improves attention and perception. People who name things out loud noticed them better and worked with them faster. In addition, self-talk helps prepare for difficult conversations, meetings, and situations. Many people, before an important conversation or meeting, mentally or out loud, rehearse what they will say, how they will react, what arguments they will bring. It also helps analyze past events, draw lessons from them, and not repeat mistakes in the future. Kross from the University of Michigan in his work showed that the correct self-talk, especially when we address ourselves in the second person, you will cope, significantly reduces emotional intensity and helps recover faster after stress. That is why professionals of the highest level, civil aviation pilots, surgeons, Olympic athletes, chess players, actors, public speakers, consciously learn and actively use conscious self-talk as a powerful tool. Modern neuroscience already gives us a very clear and detailed picture of what happens in the brain at the moment of self-talk. Functional magnetic resonance imaging shows that during self-talk, several key areas are simultaneously activated: the left inferior frontal gyrus, which is responsible for language processing, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the center of executive functions, working memory, self-control, and planning. When you voice your thoughts, you literally use the language centers of the brain in order to better direct attention, structure information, regulate emotions, and manage your behavior. Numerous experiments in cognitive psychology have confirmed this effect. People who consciously use positive, instructional, or supportive self-talk demonstrate significantly better results in sports, studies, work, creativity, and even in managing anxiety and stress. The simple phrase, "calm down, you've done this before, focus now, breathe deeper," spoken out loud or to yourself, can really reduce the level of anxiety and increase the quality of task performance. It is important to understand one key thing. Self-talk is used not only by ordinary people. Many outstanding personalities, champions, top specialists, and geniuses do it consciously and regularly. World-class athletes before the start and during competitions. Pilots, voicing checklists even on autopilot. Surgeons, during the most complex operations. Chess players, analyzing positions. Public speakers and actors, rehearsing key moments. The difference is only that they use self-talk in a structured, positive, purposeful, and conscious way, and do not let it run on its own in the form of chaotic self-flagellation or anxious rumination. It is very important to learn to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy self-talk. Healthy self-talk is when you address yourself as a friend, mentor, or partner, support, motivate, analyze, calm, give constructive feedback, even if sometimes you scold yourself a little. This is normal if the criticism is constructive and aimed at growth. The unhealthy option is when the voices feel external, when they order to do something harmful or dangerous, when self-talk becomes extremely cruel, obsessive, continuous, and seriously interferes with normal life. In such cases, it is really worth contacting a psychologist or psychotherapist. So the next time you catch yourself talking to yourself, in the car, in the kitchen, in the shower, on a walk, or just sitting at the computer, do not rush to fall silent, get embarrassed, and look around. Smile. Perhaps at this very moment it is not madness or weakness speaking to you. Perhaps it is the wisest, most caring, and most interested in your success interlocutor you have ever met in your life. Your own brain, which is sincerely trying to help you become calmer, more confident, more effective, and happier. The next time you hear your own voice, say to it mentally or even out loud with warmth, "Thank you. I see you're trying. I appreciate it. Keep going. We are really a great team." Because you really are not alone. Your brain is always on your side. It works for you 24/7. And together you are capable of a lot.